Hello, I'm Julian. I'm one of the directors of Blue Stoop. And this is normally our Thursdays on the Stoop slot, where we have free workshops. But today we have a very special workshop. I don't even want to call it a workshop, that's the wrong word. A session where we're going to talk about our spring classes and answer any questions that you all might have. So just to begin, if you're unfamiliar, Blue Stoop is a literary arts organization based in the greater Philadelphia area. We do classes online and in person in a variety of literary topics, ranging from poetry to autofiction to nonfiction, everything in between. We also do classes on publishing skills and other sort of professionalizing aspects of a writer's life. So all of our classes have financial aid options, and we do our best to keep them as inclusive and accessible as possible. We also have free workshops every Thursday, more or less, except for this one, on Zoom, and virtual writing sessions, like group generative writing sessions on Wednesdays. Both of those things are free, and we encourage you to check them out if you haven't tried it. It's a nice way to break up your routine and maybe get a little outside your comfort zone and work on that thing you've been avoiding. We all got one. So yeah, that's the gist of Blue Stoop. If you have any specific questions about classes you want to make sure I tackle today, do put them in the chat. I'll keep an eye out. But I'm going to go over the FAQ and all the basic stuff. So I'm going to talk about, well, and I'm going to join in conversation with some of our teachers about our spring classes, and we're going to go through them in order in which they are starting. So we're going to start with actually our first sold out class. But for posterity and just so you get a chance to chat with this person, learn a little bit more, and for those of you who've already registered, a little bit of a preview, I'd love to hear from Wancy about One and the Same, which is an autofiction workshop. Wancy, could you tell us a little bit about what the class will be like and what kind of people might enjoy it?
Hello, it's actually Wansi.
Wancy, my apologies.
Yeah, no worries. It means perfect timing, if you pronounce it in Korean. But I will ramble too. I'll just read the description here and then I'll break down a little bit how the class will work. As the description reads on the Blue Soup website, autofiction blends elements of autobiography and fiction, blurring the line between truth and fantasy. In this 6-week class, participants will learn how to mine and forge their memories and lives to lay the groundwork for powerful storytelling. Through discussion and experimentation, we'll explore the foundations of autofiction as a genre and generate new or continued works of our own. And I read the description so I don't ramble too hard. Yeah, basically each class will generally run the same. Um, we will have read, but for the first class, we'll read in class a piece of published autobiographical fiction. For example, in the first class, we'll read the very short My Name from Sandra Cisneros' The House on Mango Street. And then we'll break down a discussion into the autobiographical elements of of which for some authors you can find a lot of out there on the internet and some very little. Um, and then we'll talk about that and we'll talk about those elements. We'll talk about how much of their own lives was utilized in the work and how sometimes autobiographical fiction can be um, just taking very few spare elements of one's life and then like myself, I have fun with my fiction. I'll have whole scenes that are very real to life, and then they'll take on a sort of maybe magical realism aspect or science fictional aspect. And so yeah, that's the basics of the course, and then we'll break into workshops. And I believe there's 12 students. So we're aiming to go, the first class will be conversational introductions, talking about the selection from the house on Mango Street. But classes 2 through 5 we'll discuss the assigned reading, and then we'll do 3 workshops per class. So everyone will have a chance to workshop once throughout the course. And then, yeah, and then in the last class, we'll have a discussion about how it all went and any questions anyone might have, and whatever else I can think of in 7 weeks, 7.5 weeks from now. That's the gist of it. Um, yeah, I'll pass the torch back to Julian or whoever's next. Yeah.
Thanks, Monse. Yeah, as we mentioned, it is a full class, but there's a wait list on the website. So it may be worth adding your name to that. You never know if someone maybe has something come up and has to drop out. There may be a space open. So add your name to the list if that class is interesting to you. And who knows, it might be offered again in the future and we could reach out to you then. We got a question in the chat, just like a general knowledge question about what happens during a workshop. So maybe I can sort of answer that more generally, and if other people want to chime in about what their experience is like, or flesh that out a little bit. But basically, in most writing workshops, and not everyone runs them the same way, a student will share forth a piece of writing that they have written and basically solicit feedback from the group. And usually that'll be facilitated by the instructor, and frequently, again, not always, the person who wrote the work will sort of sit back and listen and take that in and may or may not have a moment to ask follow-up questions or engage in a dialogue later. It just depends on the teacher. That's my loose definition. Would anyone else like to flesh that out a little or give an
Yeah,
alternative?
that's pretty much how I run my workshops. Basically, students will submit their work the week prior, giving the rest of the class time to read the work. I don't require anyone to have written notes to pass on because I know these classes come in sort of like outside of our regular lives. That said, I do hope that students come and they will share, they will recall what is um, what was exciting for them, and then areas that they feel like could be improved or things that they just had questions about, things in the story that were unclear to them. Some people like the sandwich approach, which is like a highlight, critical highlight. But however people want to critique, I just always hope that we work towards that we're working in service of the story to help improve the writer's work. And I always want workshop, especially one that's called autobiographical fiction or that has that element to it. So we're dealing with people's lives in a way, and so that we come in with care. And yeah, and then I hope that the writer, yeah, does sit back, take notes while everyone is speaking, but then open it up towards the end with their own questions for the rest of the class about anything specific that they wanted to ask that, or maybe Janet was unclear on something, and or maybe two people were unclear on something, and maybe the writer was like, "Oh, like, can you dig into that more?" So we save a little space for that at the end of each individual workshop. Yeah, and then if anyone wants to meet with me outside of class, we can set up a Zoom, like a 15-20 minute one-on-one, and then I'll also be sending back notes. So that's my take.
Thank you. Yeah, any of other teachers are here? Do you have like I guess, an alternative definition of a workshop, or how do you think of it differently? It's okay if not. Okay, cool. So yeah, so that class is coming up very soon, and again, it's full. But add your name to the wait list if you're interested. You never know what might happen. The next class that comes up after that is with Hewitt Otelo. It's between language and music, Black acoustomologies. Hewitt, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you might describe the class to someone who has never heard the word acoustomology and isn't quite sure what we're getting into.
Hi, Julian. Thank you. Glad to be here, and I'm gonna just read from the description. I studied anthropology in undergrad. That's not part of the description, but that's where the term acoustomology comes from. And it's a hybridization of the words acoustic and epistemology. So it emphasizes sonic ways of knowing and being in the world. Um, and I'm starting with the understanding of poetry as a knowledge making or epistemological tool in a way to share information. So poetry is our field of study, and sound is our way of working through knowing the world. It's it's a theory that comes out of the anthropology of sound. So from the anthropology of sound from an ethnomusicologist called Stephen Feld. So we'll read a little bit from him. Another article that talks about um, Black maritime acoustomologies, and then some Audre Lorde. But it's a 3-hour workshop. We're gonna write poetry, so the between language and music aspect of it is that's the space that poetics rests in. Poetry is between music and between regular speech. And yeah, that's a little bit of rambling to try to answer the question.
It made sense to me. So if someone takes the class, like what will their experience be like? I mean, is they're going to spend it doing some writing, some listening, a mixture?
There's definitely going to be a mixture. So there's going to be, I have slides. So it's not going to be like a professor at the front of the lecture hall just reading. Um, we're going to stop through each point and reflect. And so I'm hoping that participants will write their answers to the questions. And then we're going to be looking at poetry that does what I think of as Black acoustomology. We're going to read poems from Mafa by Harmony Holiday and model our own poems after that. And so there's going to be note taking, there's going to be writing, not necessarily workshopping, but more generative aspect of a writing workshop than like reflective aspect of it. And yeah, we're going to listen to a little bit of music. There's going to be some drawing in the beginning in our little introduction because I have a comics interest and background, and I think that it helps us tie our mind to being creative, and just getting to know each other.
I see you bringing together all these different influences and learning techniques to create this really cool mesh of strategies. I'm really excited for the class. Something I forgot to mention earlier, Wansi's class is virtual. Hewitt's is online, or sorry, in person. I know a word, at Culture Works in Center City, Philadelphia. So of course you would need to be semi-local to take it, but it's a single session. So, even if it's a little bit of a schlep, it might be worth it for you because it's just one day and it's several hours. I think it'll be a lot of fun. A great chance to meet other writers in the area too. Is there anything else people should know, or do you feel like that about covers it?
I think that covers it. It'll be you said the important parts about it being in person, and there's still room to sign up. Friends can tell friends, and they can tell their friends. Um, yeah, and I'm just excited for this opportunity to work through these thoughts with people and bridge theory and poetry, uh, bridge anthropology and poetry.
Very
Thanks.
cool. Perfect. Thank you so much. Um, so yeah, as Hewitt mentioned, there's still space available. There's still financial aid seats available for I think pretty much every class. So if you're on a budget, check it out. I think that most people, if they live in the Philadelphia area and they're low income, should qualify. And we've made the process as simple as possible, which I'll talk about more later on. Um, we also have payment plans, so even if you're not eligible for aid, we can break it up in a way that's manageable for you. Um, the next class I wanted to talk about is with Sam Heaps, who isn't here today, but I'll just kind of go over the gist of it. There is a link to the registration page. Sam Heaps is teaching The Tipping Point, Writing Choice as Seen. Um, So basically writing those tense moments in a scene where a character must make a decision. We've all encountered those in media. I personally like them. I think they're quite tense, which makes for a good read to me. But it more specifically, a moment of decision can be one of the most memorable elements of a story. In this prose-focused 3-hour session, we'll analyze 2 skillfully executed scenes of choice, brainstorm what we as a group think is important to show in a decision, and generate our own empathetic depictions of this critical point. Students of all levels are welcome, and sharing is encouraged but not required. Those who have a work in progress are welcome to bring those characters to the workshop. All others should be ready to start a new story with a crossroads. So Sam is a local writer, very talented, lives in Philadelphia, does labor organizing, and yeah, definitely is passionate about this topic. Um, it's a single session. It is also in person at CultureWorks and kicks off March 1st. So I think we should probably have everybody registered by maybe like 2 weeks from now, around February 21st, just so we can, give our venue a heads up about who's coming. But yeah, definitely check it out. Financial aid seats available, all that good stuff. The next class on my list is with Kristen Martin, who we have here today, who is teaching Through the Back Door about hybrid memoir. So at the risk of misrepresenting the class, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen. Tell us a little bit about what that class is going to be like and who might enjoy it.
Yeah, sure. So this is going to be a 6-week workshop class, and we're going to be focusing on uh, 2 different ways of thinking about writing hybrid memoir. So I'll read a little bit from the first. I'll introduce the class a little bit and read a little bit from the description, and then talk about like the different ways that we're going to approach the topic and kind of what students can expect about how the class will unfold. So when we're writing nonfiction, we essentially have like 2 main subjects at our disposal, either writing about ourselves or writing about things outside of the self. And sometimes when we're taking a break from what's going on inside our heads and writing about ourselves, we actually are able to see things from our own lives in a new light and discover something universal. And so the initial idea for the class was to explore this idea of the backdoor memoir, which is a work that seems at first to focus on an outside phenomenon, but ends up revealing just as much about its author as it does its topic. And I think like the book one book that does this really well is Jen Shaplin's My Autobiography of Carson McCullers, which it starts with her looking into the archives of the Southern Gothic novelist McCullers, and then ends up with being much more personal as the book goes on. But we're not going to look at just books that start out with the outside phenomenon and then reflect on the self. We're also going to look at books that go the other way around in doing the hybrid memoir, where you start out looking at the personal and then incorporate research and reporting. And so the book starts from personal questions and personal curiosities, and then expands outward. And hybrid memoir is definitely having a moment right now. And so that's kind of the inspiration behind the class. But in the class, we're going to read excerpts from memoirs like Jen Shaplin's Autobiography of Carson McCullers. We're also going to look at Blue Stoop founder Emma Copley Eisenberg's The Third Rainbow Girl, and books like Carla Cornejo Villavicencio's The Undocumented Americans, and really study how they weave together the personal and the research and the reporting, and how one leads to the other or vice versa. And we're going to experiment with prompts and writing exercises, and then write and workshop a final piece that uses research, reporting, or criticism to like cultural criticism to open the door to the self, or uses the self to do vice versa. So there's options here. And that will be a personal essay. So not a memoir length work. Obviously, you're not going to write a whole memoir in 6 weeks in this class, but you will have like a shorter essay that you'll be drafting and working on. And as I said, we're going to start by really kind of thinking about how other writers are doing this in their works, and looking specifically at things like what questions are driving their inquiries on the page, how they're enacting that on the page, think about the structure and organization of their works and things like that. And then we'll go on to also thinking about how to do this ourselves. um, and doing writing exercises that will scaffold into this longer piece that you're going to be writing, and then workshopping in the last two classes. And we'll also talk about research and reporting techniques and different avenues to take that, and in order to, work up to this piece. Yeah, I think that's pretty much an overview of how it's going to work.
Awesome. And you yourself are a memoirist as well, or I guess what would you call yourself as a writer?
Yeah, my book is more, so if there's a spectrum between, like, I feel like all these books exist on a spectrum where there's like some that are much more personal material and much less reporting research, and others that are much more reported research and less personal. And mine would be the latter. I just had a book come out called The Sun Won't Come Out Tomorrow, The Dark History of American Orphanhood. And it opens with a personal story of my own experience of being orphaned as a teenager. And then I'm not in the book as much as one might think, because my own personal history doesn't intersect that much with the actual realities on the ground of like the history of orphanhood in the United States and the contemporary experience of dependent children and the families that get involved in child welfare cases. So, and I can talk about that in the class too, how I made those decisions. Yeah.
Awesome. It sounds really great. Yeah, registration deadline for this one is coming up fairly soon. That would be about February 26th, give or take. That's a soft date, but try and get signed up by then if you're able to. I think it'll be a really great class, and I just posted the link in the chat if you want to learn more. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Okay, next up, we're making good progress here. Writing the Wounded Character with Emily John Tobias. Emily's not present at the moment, but I'm going to post a link and read a statement and a description of the class. So it's a 3-week class, and in it, students will take a deep dive into narrative structure by way of the wounded character, meaning characters who have are coming to the table with some trauma or some hurt behind their motivating their actions. So through reading, writing, and discussion, we'll learn the foundations of story structure, including character roles such as protagonist or antagonist, and how they function, narrative timelines, and character motives and development. We'll also explore how we as writers and individuals can learn from our fictional characters' pain and their capacity for change. So I asked Emily if there was anything that she wanted me to share with you all, and Emily said that her teaching style pushes against any preconceived notion that we writers work in solitude. Together, we'll explore a method to the madness of writing characters that makes sense out of how plot and structure function, and how to embrace craft. Then we'll play and practice by generating new work and sharing our ideas with one another. We'll engage with one another within the scaffolding of a traditional workshop context, practicing how to give and receive feedback. Through this collaborative exploration, the group will leave with tools to use for any work of fiction going forward. So that's Emily in a nutshell. She's an author, prize-winning author, widely published, California-based, but I guess honorary Philadelphian, just by nature of having hung around Blue Stoop this long, as many other people are. So yeah, definitely check out Emily's class if that sounds interesting to you. It'll be fiction-based, 3 weeks in March. Okay. Next up, Queer Art of Friendship, Kurt David. So Queer Art of Friendship, I'll grab that link real quick. Friendship class. Oh yeah, so it's right in the title. It's about the queer art of friendship. So it asks, what is friendship? What isn't it? Isn't it kind of queer? It's a 3-week class, and in it, we'll think through these questions in the context of our own lives and communities. We'll take inspiration from representations of friendship in literature and visual media, and students will work across genre to generate new writing. So you may have heard the phrase across genre. That is because this is, I think, one of our only multi-genre classes. I mean, we have some hybrid genre classes for sure, but this one is like spanning multiple ones and is more interested in the topic than the specific genre it's written in. And so they'll be pulling from poetry, fiction, etc., and some visual like TV and film kind of examples as well. I think it's going to be a really fun one. So that one is in person at CultureWorks. It's in the evenings, Monday nights, late March through early April. Okay, rounding the corner, just a couple more. Beyond the Page with Dimitri Reyes. When I grab that link too. This one is performance skills for poets. I don't know about you, I find it hard to talk in front of other people. So I think that this class would be really useful to anyone who has been writing work on the page and has this dream of maybe sharing it verbally or in some other way out loud with an audience. I think that performance is very much a learned skill, and it can be taught. So it's worth checking it out, even if you have stage fright, if you have fantasies of taking up that open mic by storm, I think this would be just right for you. It is a 3-week class. It's Saturday afternoons in person at CultureWorks starting in mid-April. And here's the description from the website. It's an immersive 3-week workshop, and participants will learn strategies for structuring and performing impactful poems by studying the Black arts, Nuyorican, and breakbeat movements. Through manipulating pacing, pauses, rhyme, and rhythm, students of all experience levels and poetic genres will generate new material and gain experience performing work that is transformative for writers and audiences alike. And Dimitri is a Boricua multidisciplinary artist, content creator, and educator from Newark, and was named one of the best new Latinx authors of 2023 by latinostories.com. And I mean, the bio goes on from there. It's very impressive. You should click the link and read it for yourself. But yeah, very cool class, 3 weeks, mid-April. Check it out. All right. And the last, but certainly not least for this section here, we've got Shani Surya, one of our esteemed board members, who is one of 2 people leading a very similar class called From Query to Collaboration. One will be on fiction, one will be on nonfiction. Shani is representing our fiction contingent. Could you tell us a little bit about the class and what students might expect? It's about 90, I think it's a 90-minute one, right?
Yes, it's a 90-minute one. And I'll say that Liz and I have had a couple of conversations about, what we're doing. So while the 2 classes will differ, especially because I'm doing fiction and she's doing nonfiction, I hope that what I share here today will also give you a sense of what will happen in the nonfiction course. And we definitely encourage you to sign up for both if that's something you can do, because the process of querying is so individual in certain ways that as much information as you can get from different people who've been through the process, the more prepared you'll be as well. In my class, we're going to be looking quite a bit at the query letter itself. So again, this is a skill set that can really be used in different types of query letters as well, even if you're not working in fiction. So let's say you can't make it to the nonfiction class, you can definitely pop into my class too, no problem. And so what we'll be doing is taking apart the query letter and seeing what is the most useful thing to put kind of up top, and then how to move through that and how to close the query letter. What is like a comp title? How do you pick one? And then we're going to do a bit of a group exercise on improving query letters. So I like my classes to be multimodal, even if they're in that 90-minute slot. I don't want to be lecturing at you for 90 minutes. So we'll look at some query letters that maybe could be improved, and as a group talk about what we would do. And then we'll have a little space to work on our own query letters. I'm definitely not expecting people to have a query letter done when they come into the class, nor do I expect them to finish it during the class, but it's just an opportunity to brainstorm while you're in the space, and then hopefully leave that 90-minute session with a starting point that you can then continue on. I also want to add that if you're like at the beginning of a project, or you're halfway through and you think I might query this in the future, this can still be the class for you. You don't have to come in with like a finished project and you're ready to query the next day, because this is also a thinking exercise for you to start to narrow down what your project might be and what kinds of spots it might have, like in a larger literary landscape. And you can always write a first draft of a query letter that might then change when you've reworked the project a little bit more. After we do a little bit more of that sharing and talking about query letters. We're also going to talk about how to identify agents that might be good champions of your work, how to actually handle the process of querying, both from the logistic standpoint and the emotional standpoint, because obviously it can be really difficult putting your work out to gatekeepers. And then if you do end up with offers, how do you want to handle those? How do you want to talk through that? What kinds of questions would you ask when you're meeting with agents? And we will definitely have some Q&A and open discussion as well. So it'll be a lot packed into 90 minutes, but hopefully will be super useful and will make you feel really prepared as you head into the next steps.
Man, you really hit every point. I have nothing to ask you, but that was perfect. Yeah, I think that you really nailed the part that I was most wanting to follow up on, which is like, at what point should people take this class? And like you said, you don't have to be done and ready to ship your novel out the door to start thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always a nice way to just to meet other writers and see what they're doing and just kind of have that moment, because writing these long form projects can sometimes feel so solitary as well. And just to see like where other people are at and what they're doing, I always found that to be like a really nice moment.
Do they have, I mean, maybe this is a silly question, but like in MFA programs, do they teach this?
It kind of depends, I think, on your program. Some programs are maybe more interested in the professionalization and some aren't. I personally found it also difficult to work in the novel space in the MFA. I did a lot of short story just because I think some workshop models can operate a little easier with a short story. So a lot of this I learned post MFA, just talking to other people, other writers, and hearing what they have to do. So that's something that excites me about this class. I think we're bringing this knowledge in a way that sometimes isn't available even in like super traditional settings.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I didn't get an MFA, but I went to grad school for a totally unrelated thing. And the part that was always missing for me is the like the job skills, the career stuff that comes after you get the education. So I really love that we're doing that this semester, and I'm really excited that you're leading the conversation on the fiction side of it. The other side of this again will be nonfiction with our with another board member, Liz Greenspan, who is also really wonderful and personable and just like Ashani, nice to talk to. So would recommend checking out both. You can bundle them together to save a few bucks. And again, there's financial aid. So there's options galore. We really just want to have you in the classroom. So however we can get you there, like, let's figure it out. So those are all our standard classes. And I want to talk about a couple other classes that we have that are part of sort of a separate but similar thing. It is Power to the Pen, Writing for Revolution. This is a grant subsidized program, meaning that basically all of our classes have financial aid, but this one has way more financial aid available. So there'll be two classes, one in fiction, one in nonfiction and one in poetry. The poetry class is Poetry as Resistance, Crafting Your Revolutionary Voice with Saskia Kersey. It takes place throughout March. And again, 3 weeks, each session's about 2 hours. And I think that one takes place Sunday afternoons. The other class is write an essay clean as a bone, which is taken from a James Baldwin quote. That's taught by Nicole Young on Wednesday evenings in April. So the process for signing up for these classes is a little bit different than the other ones. That's why I separated it out. Basically, because we have way more financial aid available than usual, we're trying to make sure we distribute it in an equitable way. So there's an application. The application is not hard. It is not long. It'll take maybe 20 minutes to complete if you want to be detail oriented about it, which I would recommend. That application is due February 23rd, and you can find it at bluestoop.org/power. I've put that link in the chat, and we'll post it elsewhere as well. But yeah, it's a really cool program. We're definitely going to prioritize people in neighborhoods we don't usually reach, people who are low income, people who are impacted by the closure of the University of the Arts, and tuition can be as low as $0. So that we have historically not been able to offer a ton of fully free classes. And finally, with grant support, we're able to create a bunch of free slots in these classes that we're not typically able to offer. So yeah, if you're interested in improving your storytelling skills, and connecting with other writers, we would love for you to apply for these classes. They're short, they're fun, it'll be a nice way to meet people, and we're going to try and make it as like well-rounded of an experience as possible with additional opportunities to network and connect with other writers. So check that out when you have time. Tell a friend if it's not for you, or even if it is for you. Word of mouth just goes so much further than any ad you could possibly buy. So that's Power to the Pen. I hope you'll check it out. Let's talk a little bit more about financial aid and money in general. Our financial aid process has changed a couple times over the last year or so, just because we've been trying to hammer down the right system. So now it is very easy. And I've actually made a video tutorial, which you can save that link and watch it later. But basically, you just go to the financial aid page on our website, fill out a quick form, click a couple things, and then you will know right away if you're eligible or not. And if you are eligible, you'll be directed to a sliding scale version of our store where you can choose the level of aid that you need based on your situation. Like always, financial aid is first come, first serve, with the exception of that Power to the Pen program where we have applications. Everything else is first come, first serve. So if you see a class you're interested in and money is maybe a potential obstacle here, sign up quick, because those steeply discounted slots tend to be the ones that fill up first. We definitely want to, make space for you and have you present. So I would encourage you to move quickly if you see something you're interested in. There's also payment plans available. Payment plans are open to anyone, no matter where you live, no matter what your income is. It's just if you want one. The default option is Afterpay. So when you're checking out on the website, you just select Afterpay, and Afterpay will break up your payment into whatever increments they do. I think it's like 4. It might depend on the amount of money that the class costs. If you are for some reason ineligible for Afterpay, or if you needed a payment plan for maybe like a different type of situation, we can also do an invoice-based one. It's a little more work, but for us, but not for you. And there's no interest or anything, so it's a nice way to do stuff if Afterpay doesn't work for you. So yeah, definitely don't let money be an obstacle here. We really want to find ways to bring you into the fold. And on that note, we also have some fully free programs. So if you really don't want to deal with any of that, you can still be a part of this community. More or less every Thursday on Zoom, we've got an hour-long workshop. The one next week will be Poetry as Pleasure. And then there'll be other ones after that, all on all types of topics: poetry, fiction, nonfiction, more like professional type skills. We just did one last week that was legal advice for writers, which you can now find on our YouTube channel. I think it's a Blue Stoop PHL is our username. But yeah, we try to just deliver as much useful information to you all as possible at no cost. And then on Wednesdays, we've got our drop-in writing group, basically 3:30 to 5:30 on Zoom, just generative working time with peers. It's nice to have the company. It makes you way more accountable to getting your work done. I don't know why it works, but it totally does. And we're always doing more. So stay up to date with us by subscribing to our newsletter. You just go to bluestoop.org, scroll down to the bottom of the page to get started with that. Well, we got a question about the Power to the Pen application. Great question. Is there a writing sample component? No, we are not here to assess the quality of your work. We just want to know why you want to take the class. Is it important to you? Are you going to show up and participate in good faith? Those are really the only kind of questions we're going to ask on that Power to the Pen application. It's not about your talent, it's about your passion. It's not about your experience, it's about your investment and willingness to try. So that's really all it is. The prioritizing will definitely be more focused on like what zip code you're in, as opposed to anything else, just because we're trying to, the grant is for helping us increase our audience reach. So we're going to try and target some of the neighborhoods we don't typically get to as well. But of course, there's like 24 seats to fill, or 30 seats to fill across 2 classes. So, we may not only limit it to those specific zip codes, which is why the application is open to everybody. Hope that wasn't too confusing. So I'm going to share some links in the chat that I think you will find helpful. There's classes, there's a course catalog for easy browsing. There's a list of our student policies and code of conduct. There's an FAQ page, financial aid page, and of course the event calendar, where you can learn about all the things I was just telling you. We also have a community calendar, so things that we didn't plan but other people in our area did. I'm going to share that in the chat as well. And it's a great way to find out about what's going on in the community and meet more people. you know, we can't be everywhere. And I think the best option for us as an organization is to support the people who are already doing the work so well. So definitely check out literary events in Philly, fill up those audience seats, show your support, and, you know, expand your mind a little bit. I think it's a really fun way to get out of your comfort zone. I've got about 18 minutes left, so I'm going to do a couple of things. One is I'm going to go over the code of conduct and the FAQ, just like the stuff that we get the most asked the most often, and then I'll open it up to any questions in the room. Oh, Sam, just fill out the application to submit the statement. It'll be in the form. So just when you go to bluestoop.org/power and scroll down, there's a whole application there with everything you need. Thank you for asking. Okay, FAQs, the questions we always get. Who are these classes for? Adults, that's a big one. You got to be 18 or over. You know, working with kids requires all kinds of paperwork and clearances and stuff. And there's also other people already doing that work. I think if you're under 18, definitely check out Mighty Writers. That's local, a little bit less local. There's also, I think it's called Write Pittsburgh. They do a lot of online classes that are open to teens and younger people. So yeah, our classes are for adults with an interest in creative writing. That's it. You don't need specific education. There's no prerequisites or qualifications. You just need to show up with a willingness to learn, and you need basic English writing and reading skills. That's going to help you a lot, unless, you know, we might at some point have classes that are more like bilingual or maybe Spanish language. At this time, classes are English language. We also strive to foster an inclusive and anti-racist environment. So you got to show up in good faith and be ready to be in a diverse community, and all the things that come with that. How big are the classes? The smallest possible class is 6 students. The largest is 15. So your class, whatever you sign up for, will probably be somewhere in between. If we don't reach that 6 student minimum, the classes do get canceled. But if that were the case, you would receive a full refund. And quickly. So you don't have to worry about, you know, taking a gamble there. If something were to happen, the class couldn't happen, you would get your money back. Apart from that, we don't really do refunds, and you can learn more about why and the details about that in the student code of conduct, which was, I think, did I link it? Yes, the student policies link I put earlier. That'll explain. Basically, the way we set up tuition, it allows us to pay our teachers, and if people demand a bunch of refunds right before the class runs, it puts the class in danger of running and makes it hard to pay the teacher. So definitely, you know, register thoughtfully, you know, read, ask questions, make sure you're interested in the class before you sign up. Yeah, I think in most cases, people are really happy with what they signed up for. And there's always, if there's something is a little bit off or something, we can always talk about it and make it better. We try to be as accessible as possible to our students. Payment plans we already talked about. Accessibility needs. We definitely do our best to accommodate people with a wide array of disabilities, whether it be, you know, sensory, physical, cognitive, etc. So best way we can help you with that is if you communicate with us about what you need and how you need your access needs to be met, so we can do our best to make that happen. All of that is in the student policies that should be covered there. Okay. And as for the actual code of conduct itself, let's see if it's worth getting into. I know it's a long document, but this is me just trying to be thorough. And basically, yeah, we ask you to attend all the classes. If you're sick or you have COVID or whatever's going on, you're not sure, obviously stay home, but just be in communication if something comes up. Same thing with payment plans. You know, if something were to happen, you have a personal crisis, you can no longer make your payments, be in communication with us, don't ghost us. We just want to talk it through so we can figure out a plan. And most importantly, Blue Stoop is run by well-intentioned yet imperfect human beings. Taylor and I do our best to be reachable, flexible, understanding, and helpful. So you can always contact us if something is an issue, and we'll do our best to make it right. So yeah, that's the gist of it. There are so many good things going on and more things coming up in 2025. So I appreciate your interest in classes and hope you will consider signing up or attending one of our free programs, or pass it along to a friend who might benefit from having some designated creativity time in their life. I have rambled substantially. In our last 15 minutes together, I just want to open it up, no pressure, but if anyone has questions about anything we've discussed here, I'd be happy to answer. So you can put it in the chat or you can ask aloud. Floor is open. I'll give it like a minute before I change topic. It's a minute more or less. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you all tuning in, spending this part of your day with me. I know this is like kind of the sleepiest hour of Thursday. But next Thursday, it will not be sleepy at all. It'll be poetry as pleasure. Very exciting topic, super fun, right on time for Valentine's Day. So I'm going to post, oh yeah, just click the events page, bluestoop.org/events to sign up. Oh, and if you are so inclined, you want to pitch in, you want to support the work we're doing at Blue Stoop, you can always chip in at bluestoop.org/donate. And tonight there is a author event, a virtual author event. So anyone who manages to pitch in the next hour or so will get invited. Otherwise, we welcome your support and appreciate the help. Donations go directly to funding scholarships, to putting on free community programs, and to just generally building our capacity as an organization. We're 2 people strong, both working part-time trying to make this work, and then we have a great crew of volunteers. But yeah, any support you're able to offer makes a big difference. But yeah, most importantly, we want you to just be a part of this community. This is for you. So I hope you see a place where you belong here. And if you don't, contact us. Let's figure it out. Thanks again. And thank you to all our teachers who spent time answering questions and pitching their classes. You all are awesome. And I think this is going to be a really fabulous semester. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Take care. Thank you, Shani. Thank you, Wansi. Thank you, Sam, Kelly, Xander. Have a good one. Bye.